Hello there and welcome to yet another edition of Mullooly Matters, our weekly podcast coming to you from the European Parliament. This time round we're in Strasbourg and I'm pleased to welcome a very special guest with me today. Dr Jessika van Leeuwen from the Netherlands is here. She's a member of the group of the European People's Party, the Christian Democrats in the Netherlands, but also, more importantly, an animal scientist in your own right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
And we're going to go straight into the talking point of the week in Ireland, Annie, and talking point of the month. An investigation by journalists from the Irish Farmers Journal newspaper went to Brazil, had a most interesting visit around the country, a country you know well, Jessica. The beef editor of the paper, Adam Woods, gets the credit. We've been looking at some of the footage of Adam going from one shop to another, purchasing antibiotics without ID, without cattle herd numbers, without any logging of the facilities, and even some of the illegal hormone growth promoters as well. But you're not surprised by this?
I'm not surprised at all. No, I have lived in South America for about 8 years, and I've been working in the agri-food business, covering entire South America. But my office was based in Brazil, so it was my main area of work. And indeed, it is exactly like the footage shows. There's no requirement to buy. There's no prescription needed to buy antibiotics. Farms in Brazil don't have an obligation to register the use of medication. But what is very interesting in an aspect that we haven't seen yet is, at least in the footage, that most of the antibiotics is just already incorporated in the feed factory. So it's in the feed. It's not even added on farm. It's already in the feed as a preventive measure to support growth of the animals.
So look, we could come back with, and we will talk about Mercosur, the trade deal, in a while. But from a health perspective in Brazil, have they never heard of antimicrobial resistance? Have they never heard of the threat of overuse of antibiotics to not just their animals, but to themselves?
Well, of course, the invention of antibiotics has really brought humankind a lot. We've progressed a lot because we had antibiotics. So antibiotics are not necessarily bad, but you have to use them the right way. And the problem that we now realize is that we've overused them because we were so fond of them and it was so easy to use. And now we have resistance, antibiotic resistance, which the World Health Organization predicts is going to be the #1 cause of death in humans by 2050. So this is very worrying. And because of that, in Europe, we have done major efforts to reduce our use of antibiotics, not only in the use of in humans, but especially also in livestock. And in Brazil, this is just starting. This to become aware of the risk of antibiotic resistance is just starting.
Just beginning now.
It's just starting. The problem is that the competition that they have among producers. And Brazil, of course, has very large producers of poultry and pork. And the competition there is fierce. And if they stop using antibiotics, it increases their production costs. So yes, they are aware that it's not very wise from a health perspective, but economically, they stick to it.
Well, it's amazing, really, when you consider, Jessica, I'm not sure about you when you go home to the Netherlands. When I go home to Ireland, I go to my GP with a cough or a cold. He's very reluctant to give me antibiotics.
Very much so.
Unless he has to. And
Yes.
he will say it to me.
Yeah.
But this doesn't go on in Brazil. What is wrong with the society there?
No, that doesn't go on. So it's just as easy to buy antibiotics for livestock as it is for humans. You basically don't need a prescription. And of course, there's a lot of misusage of antibiotics. But the thing here is that, and as I mentioned before, antibiotics are very cheap. Very, very cheap. And it's much more expensive to use something that also helps the animal, especially in the phase when they're young, because most preventive antibiotics are used when they're young. So little chicks, little piglets, they get the antibiotics in the feed, and that helps them with some gut health issues because there's an anti-inflammatory effect from that antibiotic that helps them overcome those gut health issues. And therefore, they grow faster with less feed. If you take out the antibiotics, that gut health issue, because the young animal's trying to adapt to this new environment, new feed and everything, it requires something. But the alternatives are way more expensive. So there are alternatives. You have feed additives that can help you overcome these issues. But it's just cheaper to use antibiotics. Well, it's all about the economics.
As a nation, you worked there for how many, 6 years?
Yes.
What was your job, by the way? What did you do?
It was interesting. I was actually working for a company that sold alternatives to antibiotics. So plant extracts. So based on different herbs that mimic some of the effects of antibiotics, the anti-inflammatory effect, for instance, to replace antibiotics in the feed by those type of products to reduce that dependency on antibiotics.
It was an uphill battle, Jessica.
It was well. You would win some at some point, but then they would add the antibiotic another stage. So I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I've been warning this Parliament, and because you've seen me, but I've been warning this Parliament for over more than 6 months, 9 months maybe, about the health risks, and it's not only the health risk for Europeans, because what happens is, if antibiotics are used in Brazil, it's not that we're bringing antibiotics onto the meat that comes to the European Union. It's not that you can trace something, but the risk is that there's resistant bacteria that remain on the carcasses or on the pieces of meat. So those resistant bacteria then enter the food chain in Europe again. And when you have insufficient cooking of the products, or there's some contamination somewhere in the slaughterhouse, then that enters the whole human health system, and that is a big concern.
And the implications are long-running. As I said, this issue came up in Ireland, particularly with the publication in the newspaper. There it is, the headline that put a lot of Irish food producers and consumers into a bit of a tizzy. I suppose when I read it firstly, I said to myself, well, we had anecdotal evidence of this. Mm-hmm. You were there when I said it, I think one of the days to Christoph Hansen, the commissioner. I think Šefčovič has been told of the trade commissioner as well. Yet they talk of a new Brazil that's going to come forward all of a sudden when the Mercosur trade deal arrives, where we're going to have compliance with rules and regulation. We're going to have logging of data and inspectors watching that. I don't believe them. Do you?
No, I do believe the willingness to do good. And there are several companies in Mercosur that trying to phase out antibiotics and do as good as they can, and that they are aware that there needs to be a new route. The problem is, it's so easy to trick the system, as there is no requirement for the registration of medication. So that's the on-farm use. And I have several of my former colleagues working in the feed industry in those Mercosur countries, not only in Brazil, but also Argentina, different countries. And it's just standard practice to have antibiotics in the feed. So it's not that the company requires it to ask for it. The standard feed just comes with antibiotics.
It's a cultural thing then at this stage. It's almost a cultural tradition of the country at this stage. So how are the regulators, and more to the point, the inspectors from the European Commission going to deal with it?
They can't. They can't, because you can't control it. It's impossible to have sufficient audits, sufficient veterinary staff locally that is able to control all of that. And then, of course, they say, well, we'll control it when it comes here. It is impossible to control. It's just, you can't. It's not that there's a residue that you can test on. And even so, how could you test so many, tons of meat that come into the European Union? So it's impossible to control. But as I said, it's all about the economics. And that is the second part, which makes this deal complicated, because it's a very unfair competition for our farmers.
Yeah, and that's as you say, here in the Parliament here in Brussels, and we've had it again, and Strasbourg, we've had it again this week, where at the end of the day, the measure is coming down to finance and the economic decisions. Yeah. On one hand, we have a lot of countries who are saying the automotive industry needs a boost, they need to sell cars into South America. And countries like our own in Ireland, they want to sell more pharma, if at all possible, into the air. But when you raise, as I did in my group, in Renew Group this week, the suggestion that health should be above economic matters, you're told very quickly that it's not, that economic matters will decide whether this deal goes through or not. Mm-hmm. That's shocking, really.
It is shocking. It is shocking because we put at risk lives of our European citizens. And it's just dismissed like, yeah, well, we know, but we cannot do anything about it. And that is shocking. The problem is it's something that it's not tangible. And also it's like a hypothetical threat that we're talking about, but it's not, because antibiotic resistance is really there, and it's very dangerous. And from a personal perspective, if you allow me, I've lost an uncle due to antibiotic resistance that got hospitalized because of something completely different, got an infection which was incurable, and he lost his life. It is, and it doesn't become more tangible than that. It is real.
It's incredible. And as you say, because of the focus on the economy, even that is an unfair competition, because on one hand you've got farmers who are able to produce meat with lower prices, lower costs, less health and safety. They're coming into Europe, selling into Europe, and the big expectation is that we'll have cheap cuts coming in from Brazil, going to the Netherlands and going to Ireland, and easily undercutting the price of meat and chicken and beef in your country as well as Ireland.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the poultry, it's pork, it's beef. The concern, of course, being the prime cuts coming in, and that undermines the European beef sector very much so. But then you have this health issue, which is shocking.
So it's extraordinary. Now let's go back to the tough business, the politics. You and I have a responsibility. You're a member of the Agriculture Committee. I'm on the committee as well. And this week in Strasbourg, we've had an opportunity to deal with the issue. There was a move to make us move quickly towards the issue of the safeguards. I'm not at all happy with the safeguards. I'd said it in committee, and I've said it before. Even Šefčovič can't answer this question. It's as if after 10% of the decline of the market in Netherlands, a bell is going to ring someplace, and everything's going to stop. The boat won't come in anymore from Brazil. And then when somebody said...
No, the ones that are on the way, we send them back.
The ones on the way, we turn them around at the port. And then the other problem is, as I said to Šefčovič, what if it's 8.5 or 9% of a decline? We said, go ahead. And we'll have that every year for 5 years. And all of a sudden, we're 40% decline in the price of beef. I mean, they don't make sense, these safeguards, do they?
Well, they make the deal a little bit better. So I'm not, I'm not going to vote against the safeguards because they make it better. But they don't make it good enough. A bad deal doesn't become a good deal just because we do a little bit of tweaking about it. So no, they don't make sense enough. And I think it's good we have more time to look at those safeguards, because with the urgency procedure, we had to vote this week about it. Now we do a normal parliamentary procedure, and we have more time to see if there's still something we can do in order to improve those safeguards. But I'm not very optimistic.
Well, firstly, as a member of Renew, I have to congratulate you as a member of EPP that brought it all to a stop today. That fast, urgent procedure. It was your party that withdrew it, the proposal, and effectively sends it back to the committee now. So clearly you and your colleagues have wanted this slow, methodical consideration of the safeguards. You'll have a chance to do it now, or at least part of a chance to. We're providing an opinion, I gather, to our colleagues in the Trade Committee who effectively will pass or otherwise.
Yes, so it will be interesting to see how much they will take into consideration. And of course, as you're very much aware, the sensitivity we have in the Agricultural Committee about this deal is very clear, because it's not a good deal for agriculture. But it is a good deal for other sectors. And in the International Trade Committee, of course, they're looking at all those sectors together. So they might not be as sensitive to our opinion as we would like them to be.
So call out the timeline for me now. This is the interesting part. We were told last night among my Renew colleagues that we had to agree to the urgent procedure this week. So we could have a vote in plenary here on Thursday. And then the European Council of Ministers could come along on the 12th of December and vote on the Mercosur package. That's slightly gone a bit astray now, as we won't be back to vote in the plenary until the end of December, 18th of December.
The 18th will
what
be
happens
voting.
in your mind? What's going to happen now?
It's difficult to predict, because first of all, it's not our timeline. It's the Commission's timeline. They want to sign this deal by the 20th of December. It's not that the European Parliament has said we have to pass this deal before the end of the year. The Council has said that they want us to vote, the Parliament to vote on it before they vote. And that might be complicated now, because if we vote on the 18th, it means they vote on the 19th in order for Ms. von der Leyen to fly to Brazil. I think they will sign it in Brazil. I'm not sure, but I guess, to sign it on the 20th. So it feels rather rushed.
And of course, either way, the Parliament will not have voted on it by the time she flies away. So I'm not sure about this idea.
Then 18th, yes, because she can take a plane on the 19th.
But that will be only on the safeguards. We're not going to vote on We're not going to vote on the actual deal in December. Do you think we'll actually have a vote on the deal? Because if we only have the committee putting through the procedure early in December, that still has to come back to plenary, has it not?
I think we'll vote on it.
The full House still has.
I hope you're right.
We were supposed to have it on Thursday of this week.
Right.
So surely next month we still have to have that vote.
Yeah, but they'll probably have it on Monday or Tuesday, and then still on Thursday.
They'll vote on Monday or Tuesday. and then try and turn it around on Thursday.
course.
It's all incredible haste when you consider some of the issues involved. I know people will say for 25 years this has been going on.
Yes.
But within a short period of time, they're now expecting a new parliament to turn around and ignore health, ignore some of the economic factors. It's going to be a difficult month of December and a very difficult vote if that happens.
It is going to be very difficult. And I do understand the urgency that some feel about this deal. There are some very good sides on this deal. But for me, as a member of the Farmer Citizens Movement, the agricultural sector cannot be used as a bargaining chip to save other sectors. I mean, we cannot fool around with our food security and health, public health. So for me, that's a no-brainer on this deal.
I agree entirely with you. And people say to me, I cannot stop the pharma industry in Ireland. They need to sell and engineering needs to sell. But you know what I say back to them? I said in the period since I joined the Parliament back in June of last year, 2024, I've met lots of pharmaceutical companies and they've come in to me. But none of them have said, we want to sell into South America. Get on with it. They say to me, we want the regulator in Brussels to clear the way to sell our drugs and our pharma in Europe. They're held up. There's regulation. There's red tape. They say, get on with your job in Brussels. They don't say sell to South America. And I don't know anyone else who says that says that otherwise.
To be honest, I haven't heard that either. No.
Maybe they know my view on Mercosur from start to finish.
And
your view as well. From a government perspective, can I ask you what's going to happen in the Netherlands? I'll tell you what's going to happen in Ireland for starters.
Yeah.
We have a government in Ireland of the two main centrist parties, which has been talking out of both sides of its mouth now for about 5 months, saying today to the farmer industry, yes, of course we will vote for Mercosur, and today to the agricultural sector. We've had a Taoiseach and Taoiseach who spent the summer going to meet farmers saying we're voting no to Mercosur, and then on Monday turning around to the farmer and saying we're voting yes to Mercosur. So they've got to stand up and be counted now. They're still not sure. I feel, maybe I'm wrong, I feel they will vote no. What's going to happen in the Netherlands?
It's a bit difficult now with the safeguards not being approved yet, because they're a prerequisite for the government to approve this deal, the safeguards. What I know is that in principle the government has, I think it was last week, came out with a statement that in principle, with the safeguards in place, they tend to vote in favor of the deal. It took a long time to take that standpoint, but they want very much to negotiate with the Commission to say, okay, what willingness is there from the Commission to help us with some specific issues in the Netherlands?
And there's a bit of that going on still with France, isn't there? Because, I was in Paris in September and they were voting maybe yes, they were making some progress. Obviously, they ran into difficulties because Macron comes out last weekend and said, we're voting no.
Yeah.
Absolutely voting no. And as a newcomer politician, I say, what's going on? And somebody says, he's obviously on air negotiating a better deal. He's saying we're voting no so he can get his mirror clauses or some of the other. Is there a wish list like that in the Netherlands as well?
I'm sure there are. Yeah, I hope there are, and I know of some that there are. So yes, we're working with it, but it's a little bit difficult to disclose as long as I don't know what's going to come out.
I don't know about you. You're more experienced than I am. I'm a first-time MEP.
Well, me too.
Oh, you're a first-time?
Yeah, me too.
Well, I find this very difficult because at the end of the day, if you have principle, and I have principle from day one on Mercosur,
yes,
and you bring forward a cohesive argument, and you point it out, particularly as the paper has done this week, as well as helped us to explain to people all over all around. There is a major health issue here. Yet we're being asked by the Parliament to ignore it. We'll be outvoted by the sounds of it at that rate by the majority, or will we be outvoted? Because the EPP did waver a bit this week on the urgent vote. Maybe there might be 700 MEPs. There are a lot of MEPs to vote.
It is, and I think there's within every group there is a little bit of difference, because we have the people that are really defending agriculture in the agriculture committee, or people that just stand by agriculture, that really don't think it's a good deal. Then, of course, on the left side, they really don't like this deal because of different reasons, but they have to do with the equal standards and also antibiotic usage and deforestation. Other arguments that
I haven't even mentioned that, but it's amazing.
That are being used as arguments. So there's a lot of volume against the deal as well. So to be honest, I'm not sure. This is going to be the cliffhanger till the end of the year. What's going to happen with Mercosur deal?
In the plenary on Monday of this week, I stood up and asked the President, Roberta Metsola, if we could proceed to send the trade deal to the European Court of Justice. Because in some respects, I'm not sure about the Netherlands, our people in our country say, why are we not voting on this in our parliament back in Dublin?
Yeah.
And of course, the Commission says we've split the deal, the trade part stays here, the rest can be dealt with elsewhere. And I feel there's a legal issue to be determined there. But yet again, the President of the Parliament says she's not convinced yet. And she says she's not making a decision to transfer. What do you think of that stance she's taken?
To be honest, that really is something that is not taught to you in animal science school. You know, the way laws, you know, make sense. I think, from a principle standpoint, it is elected members of parliament that decide over a deal, and not a judge. The authority of making trade deals is a complete EU competency. To split it now, so we have the EU competency on the trade deal, I'm not very happy with that, because I don't think it looks pretty. But whether that from a juridical standpoint is wrong, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the
The
discipline
President
on
hasn't
that.
turned it down. She keeps saying that at this point in time, she's not going to refer it.
Well, I'm happy that she gets a legal consultation on this, so she will be able to make the right decision.
My problem is that if she decides to do it after the vote is over, it's in some respects it's a fait accompli. Many people will say it's a fait accompli and it's done. But we'll have to see what President Metsola does. Just to conclude, I want to go back to the issue of your expertise, the area of animal health. You know, those of us who are watching this, I've watched some of the audits carried out by the Commission over the years. And I remember we had one inspector right before our committee here in Brussels. And I think he said at the end of his report that he did not accept the court affidavits of the Brazilian inspectors. He was so fed up with what he was told in terms of mistruths or untruths or whatever they were,
Yes.
that he said he wouldn't believe. Now, how can we ever have an audit system going forward if the Commission won't believe somebody who's sworn by a judge in that part of the world?
We can't.
I can't.
You can't. You can't. And that's the ridiculous part.
Maybe
I mean,
we
there
shouldn't still eat Brazilian beef at all. Then just boycott the beef.
I think, and that's something that I've been saying to the Commission as well from the beginning. I think the Commission has to be honest. Has to be honest that there's things in this deal that we cannot control, that there will not be equal standards, but that we need this deal because of whatever reasons they may have. But they have to be honest, and that means that they have to have better compensation for European farmers. Because if we don't keep our own livestock production, our own European farmers in business, what are we going to do in terms of when there's a crisis, or when for some reason there's no containers anymore, which we have seen. We have seen this blockage of containers, so we couldn't ship from Brazil to Europe in the first place. So what do we do when that supply chain ruptures and we don't have our own production anymore? Well, then somebody's going to be crying. But then it's too late. So that's what we really need to protect, our food security. We have to have baseline good quality food production. And we have the best quality in the European Union, and we need to stand for that. And I thank you very much for fighting this fight alongside with me.
We'll keep doing the fight, but it's a really core point you hit at the end. Food security at the end of the day is the crucial. Dr Jessika van Leeuwen, MEP, thank you for joining us on this very special podcast. We will continue to fight together against Mercosur in the coming weeks and coming months. But for the moment, thank you for joining us today. And until the next time, I look forward to speaking to you again on Mullooly Matters, the weekly podcast.